Now what will it be? Death or exile?
Hello everyone to another installment of the Film Exiles podcast. Tonight, the Exiles review Life Itself, the Amazon Studios pictures directed by Dan Fogelman. To talk about this movie, I have a great cast with me tonight. I have Millennial Mike, always and forever. How you doing, brother?
I just felt like we recorded something yesterday.
We did. Brad Status was just a couple of days ago.
Man, we're going hard, man. We're going hard for you guys.
Yes, we are, and we're going to keep them coming. How you doing, man? Everything good? Mike, how you doing? Everything good? Did you die?
Mike.
Oh, God.
Oh, man. The narrator of this is not the only that's unreliable.
Yeah.
Hey, better say.
Yeah, it's going good, man. It's going good, Just keeping it real,
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad.
Waking up on the right side of the bed,
Again, 2 days in a row? Oh,
yeah,
shit. Oh, snap. If this keeps up, I'm not going to have my usual partner by my side anymore.
See, if you notice, I went from Sheen Mikezilla to Millennial Mike. See, when I eat a Snickers bar, metaphorically, I become Millennial Mike.
You're not
yourself.
I go from grumpy and entitled to just entitled.
See, your mistake is thinking that I give a damn about what happens to you.
Oh, you know you love me. Come on.
All right. So next up, we have Pranav that's back on the pod. Pranav, how's it been? It's been a while, man.
Has it?
Yeah, it's been a while since you've been on the Film Exiles pod. It's been a minute.
Oh yeah.
I
forgot.
Yeah, I think it's been.
I was on Ronin Council, right?
Yes, we do have the voice from the Ronin Council that are with us tonight. That does feel kind of weird, to be honest.
Hey, screw you.
And last but not least, I'm really, really happy to have Salazar back on the pod. It's been too long, Sal. How you been?
I've been really good, man. Can't wait to cry with you guys on this pod.
Oh shit!
Yeah, that makes that
shed all these man tears.
I just cried last night on the Brad Status pod, man.
So y'all have a theme here. I'm not gonna lie, this movie does things to me too, man. Like, I just watched it again right before we started recording, and it's just such a beautiful story. But we'll get into it. So before we start talking about the movie, I'm gonna give our audience a quick synopsis. As a young New York City couple goes from college romance to marriage and the birth of their first child, the unexpected twists of their journey create reverberations that echo over continents and through
reverberations.
Reverberations. Thank you, Mike. That's why you're here.
Pretensity.
Yes.
Models and character. He's becoming the unreliable.
Actually,
narrator.
I figured out pretensity is not a word, but let's make it a word. Pretensity is going on a shirt.
Okay. Boom fixed.
Yes, exactly. It's intensity and pretentious together.
Okay. Well, so the synopsis that I just read is incredibly vague, and that's for a variety of reasons. It has a lot to do with the nature of the film itself. To go into this film,
It's a mess, man.
To go into this film with too many spoilers will take away quite a bit. It's full of surprises and twists and turns, and I think that strengthens the film. So please, if you're going to watch it, do it with as little spoilers as you can. Now, if you don't care, well, I'm not going to stop you. But before we do go over the spoiler wall, as usual, we're going to talk about, our feelings about the film. Strictly, no spoilers. So, Sal, why don't you get us started?
Oh boy. So I remember I watched this movie for the first time because Manu just kept shilling about it. If that's how we're gonna put it.
I learned from Mike, so I got some game to me.
Yeah, and then I didn't know what to expect because Manu thankfully was very vague in his appraisal, and then I was completely blown away by this possibly perfect screenplay, and just how the movie weaves together its themes, its writing, and the directing, like all together into one. And I was especially blown away. We'll get into it definitely for like performances, but Oscar Isaac
Ooh.
Go.
and
Oscar.
and
they
and
named
I
they,
had
they named him well. They named him well.
You really man. Yeah, I'm Isaac. Oscar Isaac.
And this movie, to me, it's very powerful because I had watched it for a third time to prepare for this podcast, and I was still very emotional, very caught up in all the drama of the film. So I love it.
And that's even knowing what's coming. Like even though you know
Yeah.
where the story's going,
Oh yeah.
you still get swept away by the emotion of it all. Mike, your turn. What about you?
I also learned about this movie from Manu's incessant shilling. He wrote an article about it, which is on our website, and it was I refused to watch it the first time because it just looked like sentimental, ilk. The kind of stuff that Manu normally likes to watch. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna do it this time.
Damn, you just
But
straight out slandering my name. Like really?
but then I read the article and I was like, wow, like that's a really interesting concept. Okay, interesting. Unreliable narrator. Okay, I can dig that. I really like that concept. So then I watched the movie and I was blown away and I had to eat some crow. But yeah, Oscar gave such a great performance. Like Sa was talking about, he really kicked things off really really well. And we can't say really anything without spoiling it, so I'm gonna stop.
So, Mike, before we go move on, do you eat this crow with hot sauce or not?
Hey man, was it Chiquita's where it's at, man?
Pranav, your turn. Tell us what your thoughts are.
Wait. Are we talking about eggs or are we talking about crow?
Crow, eggs, it's hot sauce, man. You can put that on
Or
anything.
ketchup, huh?
We can put that.
You nasty.
Pranav, your turn. What don't you tell us what you think?
Well, I watched the movie because Manu wouldn't shut up. Every day was life is so this, life is so bad. So I just want to hate watch it and then go back to him and like just destroy the movie for him, you know. But then I started crying throughout the movie and I just wouldn't stop. It wouldn't stop, man. The tragedies, the pain, the emotions, and the cinematography was amazing. But what's amazing about this movie is what Sal alluded to before. The screenplay and the script is just so tight. There's no unwanted portions or bits that didn't fit together. It was so tightly knit together. It was perfect. I have to agree with Sal. This is like one of the most perfect screenplays I've ever seen. And of course, the performances were amazing. Oscar Isaac, Olivia Wilde. We'll expand upon that later. But performances all added upon each other, and it created an amazing experience that left me wanting more. And I've only seen this once, unlike you guys, but I'm gonna watch it again a couple of more times in this week.
That's a lot of pain.
That's a lot of pain, Sal.
Well, I'm glad that you all enjoyed it. So my shilling does work. Thank you guys very much. I actually learned about life itself. I went to the theater and there was a trailer about it, and this trailer gave absolutely nothing away. It was just Oscar Isaac and all of these actors that I love that came on screen, like Olivia Wilde, Mandy Patinkin, Olivia Cook, Antonio Banderas. I'm like, all of these people in one movie, directed by Dan Fogelman, who writes for This Is Us, which is also a show that I like a lot. If you guys don't watch This Is Us, like you can see a lot of similar themes and trends there that we see in Life Itself. So I would recommend that if you guys like Life Itself. But yeah, so I wasn't able to watch it while it was in theaters because it had just a few showings and I just missed it. And I was able to watch it a few months ago when it hit Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime is awesome. It was
Yeah.
we got. I think we gotta keep saying that Amazon Prime is awesome.
Well, just the last pod was about Brad Status, but
Which was
also,
also from
yeah,
Amazon Prime.
I didn't even know that it was an Amazon Prime product until after I bought the DVD. You know, yeah.
So I was able to watch the movie, and from the very beginning, I was completely swept away by it. It has this incredibly interesting prologue to open up the film that was not at all what I expected. And as the film carries on, you see that the way that the themes and the narrative blend in together so seamlessly, it really creates something very unique and beautiful. And the performances and the music cues and all of these things just help each other to tell not just one story. Because that's the thing, it's not one story. It's many stories that are all linked together by our actions and our decisions and our choices and the way that we view and perceive the world and the way that we can affect each other's lives without even realizing it. And I felt that this movie made that so clear. And there's all these immensely beautiful visual cues that you can only catch on rewatches. And when you do, when you catch up on it, and it just pushes you further into Fogelman's mind and what he was trying to display, and he does a wonderful job of doing that. So
Nah,
please,
man. Nah, man.
please, like
They
watch Life Itself, man. Like, please, I'm asking. I shield the Exiles so hard, and I'm so happy that you guys responded to it. And I really hope that the audience, if you haven't seen it yet, just give it a chance. Like, it's very unorthodox, but there is so much beauty in its lack of orthodox.
They should have had solos for at least a few of these characters before they went a full ensemble, man.
So wait, are you telling me that this is a like a fresh, layered, unorthodox film that is you get rewarded with rewatches? Is that what you're?
Whoa.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm
It-
saying. Yes, yes.
I've
Is
never
that
seen
legal?
a film. I've never seen a film like that before.
Oh,
Well, I am actually never going to watch this movie again. I've watched it 5 times in 2 months. I'm never watching it again. That's it. Because I can't go through this anymore. I can't do it anymore.
It is
So
pretty intense.
Yeah.
It is. And one thing that I will say is that it wears its heart on its sleeve with no shame.
yes.
Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's no shame in how it feels, and I think it's a very beautiful reminder that it's okay to feel the way that we do. Like, feel as intensely as you want about the world. And I
Yeah.
think that that's a beautiful message that's wrapped up in the movie as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And there's heart, humor, optimism,
And
hope.
heroics.
Yeah, and heroics, man.
Crazy thing is that is all true. That's all true, and it has
What?
humor as well, and it has. It's
But-
true. It does have all that.
You guys say heroics. There's also cowardice in the film.
There
Oh,
is.
oh,
There
yeah.
is.
Oh,
But
that's-
you can't have one without the other.
They didn't
You
do
can't have-
they didn't do Will right, man. They didn't do him right. That's not my Will.
You know what? Let's go over the spoiler wall before we begin all this, okay? So, all right. So, to the audience, this is your final warning. We're going over the spoiler wall. So
There's no going back
there's no going back. So let's get into
unless
it.
you
So-
rewind.
So, all right, let's talk about the performances. Mike, you can get us started. We were just talking about Will, played by Oscar Isaac. So what do you think?
Man, what can be said about this? Oscar Isaac is a beast. He's an out. What?
Goat.
Yeah,
Goat
yeah, he is.
Isaac. Goat Isaac. That's his new name. Goat Isaac.
You can't leave out the Oscar, man. Don't snub Isaac.
You're right. I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah. So you're right.
But
Carry on.
yeah, his performance was so sincere. And once again, like we talked about, yesterday with Brad Status, this film is a film that lets you see the flaws of the character. It lets you see the negative aspects of the character, and it actually helps you endear you to the character. There's no apologies for any of the things that he gets wrong. Whether it's himself, his own pathos, his mental instability, his inability to his imbalancedness about things, and his inability to move on from the situations in his life. All these different things are, and he doesn't really, I mean, we're over the spoiler wall. He doesn't get over any of these negative traits necessarily, but these negative traits let his positive traits shine even more. And Oscar Isaac did such a good job with displaying both of those things. He's just such a sincere and earnest person to a fault, and not in the way to where he's too perfect or anything like that. They should have hired Brie Larson for that, but
Why?
The evil maniacal laugh of Sheen Mikezilla.
Wow, that is wow.
But
I was actually gonna let that slide, but goddamn.
Dude, Mike is something else, man.
Yeah, there's no
This
other
guy.
word. There's no other way to describe him.
But no, it was phenomenal, man. That scene with is it Annette as
Yeah.
the psychiatrist?
Marvel.
Betting. Yep.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, Dr. Kate Morris. Yeah, phenomenal. So, yeah, he was definitely a standout.
Oh, great. Anybody want to add anything about Oscar? About Will?
Oh yeah, like in the beginning you see him. Like we can discuss spoilers now, right?
Yeah, we're over the wall.
Yeah. So in the beginning you see him as this lost, drunk, with no goal in mind, like just walking aimlessly, getting drunk in a Starbucks, abusing the people there.
Fuck you very much.
And
Oh
you
yeah,
see
that
this,
shit's hilarious.
you see this guy, this broken guy, right? And you don't know the context or why, and then you slowly learn that his wife has left him and stuff. And then he's at the psychiatrist's office and he's being charming, while being drunk. And you see a new face, a new aspect of his personality, like his charm and his quick wit. And slowly you start, you see the movie dissecting him, right? And you see him being an unreliable narrator, like discussing like his last few moments with his wife, how he doesn't really believe what's real anymore, like what happened. And then we realize that his wife didn't leave him, his wife died. And then you see all that happening and it's painful and it's emotional. And then you see his psychiatrist tell him that he has a daughter, the daughter survived, and she would like to meet him right now. And he just takes the coward's path. He just takes the gun. He says he can't do it anymore, and he just shoots himself. That scene just breaks me every time I watch it. I mean, I rewatched a couple of bits before the pod. So when you watch it, it destroys you, man. Like you see that he has this glimmer of hope left. He has a daughter who needs him. He needs to raise his daughter, but he takes that coward's way and he just shoots himself, leaving his daughter, fatherless and without a mother. So that shit just destroyed me.
Sal, what about you?
I don't know if there's anything else to say about what Oscar Isaac did in this film, other than like I definitely agree and I felt the same things. So I'll just switch it over to another actor in the film, the man who played Javier Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Uh, His name is Sergio Perez Mencheta. I guess that's how you would say that.
You guess. If
Alright,
any one of us should get that, it should be you, dog.
I'm the most qualified right now
Yeah.
to be able to say that.
Yeah.
So I hope I did it right. But I thought he was really good, especially like towards the end, as far as like his story goes, towards the end of his story, because the movie starts off with like he's a very happy man, he's hardworking, he gets a new opportunity. You see his family grow, you see you see the love in his family, and then it's slowly due to the nature of the movie and what the movie's about. Um, you see it all slowly crumble around him, and you see him form an idea in his head, and then the idea like breaks him down, and just what this actor did, and like I felt the kind of the same way I did about Awen, not as intensely, but when he was very upset towards the end, when he felt like he was losing his family, it was kind of like how Oscar Isaac was, just very like.
There's actually a lot of parallels between the two.
Mm.
Like if between Oscar and Javier, like this idea, this notion that they both thought that they were saving the women in their lives. You know, like that they were the hero in their lives. Because I think Will truly felt as though he was the one that was going to come in and make Abby's life better. She's had a horrible life so far. And he felt that he was going to make it better. And Javier felt the exact same way about his wife Isabel. And when he realized that another man could give her what he couldn't, that's what
Yeah.
broke him. And I love when she tells him, "You think I chose you," and I feel like that really puts things in perspective.
Absolutely, yeah.
Didn't she say? She didn't say. You think I chose you? Like she said, I chose you. Like
Yeah,
I
she
made the
said, "I
decision.
chose you." Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I chose you. She says it twice. She says, "I chose you because I knew what I deserved."
Yeah.
And I feel like that puts such a perspective because, again, this is one of the things that this film does. It's this idea that we all have about the role that, excuse me, about the role that we play in other people's lives. You know, we all want to think that we are a hero or a villain in somebody else's life, but more often than not, we have no say in that role.
Or it's just a completely different role, and you gotta just kind of play it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's also very true. One of
Uh,
sorry, go ahead, Sal.
um, so we were talking. I'll just. I think I said everything I wanted to say on him, so I'll just go ahead and go to my other favorite performance was Olivia Cook.
She was
Uh,
great.
Yeah.
she was another person that was very well. I wouldn't say like actually. She circumstances out of her control just made her a very broken person, like way beyond Javier and Will. It was like before she was even born, or just like as she was born, her life started to crumble, and she was dealt this very horrible hand. Uh, and I felt like Olivia was just consistently just this bad attitude, and like if without context you could see like, oh, typical like asshole teenager, but because you know everything and the way the movie presents it all to you, like you're like, oh man, this is like a very troubled young woman. And I thought she was great. She was
Edgy millennials.
yes. I felt like she wasn't in the movie enough. I would have loved more of her.
Yeah,
but
I
love
agree.
everything
I agree.
she does.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
agree.
Like,
She should have her own
I was
solo.
just-
Right, she should
Her
have. Right.
spin-off, right? Her spin-off.
What's her
No,
character
not
name?
spin-off. They should have led up to life itself.
Dylan. Sal, her
Dylan.
name is Dylan.
Right, yeah,
Now,
Dylan.
Bob Dylan, come on, man.
Yeah,
That's the name.
I love that scene when he's like, "I know what you want to call her."
Yeah,
Oh, I love like
Oh.
right before she died, he's like, "I know what you want to call her." I'm like,
That's
oh,
the name of her solo movie, Dylan.
Dylan.
Dylan. Yeah.
I think my favorite performance is actually Banderas. I
Ooh.
think Banderas is so good in this movie.
Yeah.
He plays Mr. Sakion, who's the owner of the field where Javier works, and the scene where he calls him into his office and he tells him about his life story, I think is like peak Banderas. I mean, just the entire the way that he tells the story, I felt like I was there, because we're not shown we're not shown flashbacks for him. He's just sitting there and telling us the story, and the way he tells it so well that I was swept away by it.
I was waiting for him to do that thing he does in the GIF, where he puts his head back and puts his knuckles in his mouth and closes
He
his
did
eyes.
it though. He did it with the wine glass. He did it with the glass though.
That's hilarious.
He sort of did it with the glass though. But the thing is, he was so incredibly. There was this strength in him, but there was intense vulnerability in him sharing that story with Javier. He wanted to create a connection with him so badly. I'm not sure why, what it was that he saw in him that made him want to build that connection with him. But he wanted it so bad. And when Javier rejected him, the pain on his face it's palatable. I think he even says
It's unpalatable.
It's palpable.
it's
Yeah.
palpable. I'm sorry, it's palpable.
Thesaurus.com. I'll go ahead and send you that in the Skype chat.
All right, thank you. The pain on his face is palpable, and he even says to Javier, like, you heard my whole story, and you don't feel any sympathy towards me, like anything at all. And I think that he was very surprised by that, and it's all played out so well in
Yeah.
in Banderas'
Their
facial
dialogue.
features.
He's like, yeah, like, what did I do wrong? Like, you took the money, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
he's asking him like, what's wrong with me? And he's like, because you took the money, dude. And yeah.
Somebody should make a GIF of take some footage of the wife Isabel in the movie, and then like have it cut to Antonio in that famous GIF where he leans back and bites his knuckles. Somebody has to do that.
Oh man,
No,
that's,
she's actually really great too. Her name is Laya Costa.
Costa, yeah.
She's great in this role. I like how the movie introduces her, because it does the same thing that it did at the beginning.
Yes.
When it zooms in on the guy's face, you're like, this is our hero. And then
Yeah.
it kind of does that where it like zooms into the woman that's at the table.
Like
And
at the
then
very
you-
center.
Yes, and then she comes out and she's just the waitress. And she
She's
drops the plates,
fumbling
and,
and,
then,
yeah.
I just love that introduction, because again, it's the movie that
How
keeps
unreliable.
toying. Yes, the movie keeps toying with your expectations the whole time. Yeah, and I thought she's great. So before, like, I just wanted to say, like, I have issues with like the character of Javier. I can't say that I don't like him, but I just don't get him. I don't
Um,
understand.
Why is that?
Like, his reaction towards Banderas at the very beginning is something that kind of like threw me for a loop. Like, he was very I don't know
feel
how to-
yeah. I know what you're
Yeah,
saying.
right.
Like, he felt very like there wasn't much of a reaction at all. And I guess, I mean, up to that point, I guess they had a relationship with each other, so they probably talked before. They probably had come in contact with each other.
No, Sakino
that-
says that
that's-
they've never spoken before. He says that he's owned the land for 5 years, but they've never spoken.
Yep, you're right. Never mind then. Yeah, so that their,
come on,
their reaction
that's
doesn't make it.
story guessing. Come on, man.
Shut up, P.
All right.
But
Wait, like in what context? Like, are you talking about when he feels like he's losing his family, or when they
No,
first
no, no,
meet?
no. When they first meet, like, I don't actually, both times when they first meet, and even him leaving the family, like, those are two things that I was very surprised by.
Okay, why? Okay, let's break this down then.
Let's do
If
it.
we're gonna do a pod, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, why when they meet, why do you feel like you don't get him?
So Sakio tells him this incredibly personal story, and then he brushes it off. And then going further, then Sakio keeps trying to build a connection with him, and he just keeps telling him, "No, I'm not going to have any kind of relationship with you whatsoever."
But at the
You know-
same time, this dude is like around his wife, loving his wife.
No, but this was before.
before all,
This
all
is
that.
before.
Yeah, that was before all
This
that.
is when they meet
Oh,
the
okay.
first time, and even then,
okay, you're still okay.
yeah, I'm still the first minute. Like, even
Maybe
then,
he got a bad premonition or something. I don't know.
like, it just felt incredibly strange the way that he would brush off this man that was trying to offer him like a new life, basically.
For me, he was my favorite performance um, and I had the opposite reaction to Manu.
No,
Like
no, no. Like
I
he gave a great performance. I'm not saying his
no
performance
no no
wasn't great.
no no yeah not about the performance. For me, that scene I totally got his reaction. I understood why he reacted that way. I just think he had like being poor and like coming from that background, like he has this instinctive instinct to pull away from these rich assholes, right? I mean, I'm not saying Banderas' character was an asshole, but like he doesn't know that. So there was that cautious, instinct to stay away. And for more than that, this guy is like offering him drinks. Like he picks him out of the of all the workers there,
Yeah, he
and
was just cautious.
yeah, and he's asking him for his friendship. Like, I think that was very suspicious.
Yeah, he
But
didn't want
he
someone like him holding
Like,
things over
and
his
I think
head.
he
That's the
sort of
impression that I got.
Banderas had
exactly,
his reasons though
exactly.
for picking him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Banderas had it. Yeah, yeah. But Javier, from his point of view, he doesn't know that. He doesn't know what Banderas is.
No, he
He
told him.
is.
He
He
tells him.
told
That's
him.
how you
He
know.
told him.
No, no, no. He told him his story, but he
No, no, no.
still.
He
Oh, he
told him.
tells him
He
why
tells
he.
him why he picked him. He tells him.
Yeah, yeah. I get. Yeah, no, no, no. I get that. But from Javier's perspective, he is a
He
rich
doesn't trust
guy.
it.
He doesn't
Yeah.
trust him in any sense, you know. So,
Okay.
and on top of that, like I think he could kind of sense how bad things could end up, like in the worst case scenario
Yeah.
and stuff. And I think like what Mike said, like he kind of had like a premonition kind of thing where he sort of felt like this could go wrong in this direction, you know,
He,
in the
he didn't want to
future.
have he didn't want someone like that to have leverage on him. You know,
Yes, exactly.
that's why
He
when
was
he later on he asked for when he offered him a raise, he said he didn't want a raise. You know, he took the house,
mm,
but he didn't want to take his money from him. He said he'd still continue to work hard, but he wanted to work for what he had. He didn't want to feel like he owed someone like him anything.
No,
And
exactly.
I
he's
think
he's
that's
not being owed anything. He's been giving a promotion. It's like he's giving more work to do. I like that's another thing. It's not he's not giving him free money. He's giving him
No,
more
no, no,
work.
no, no, no. The thing
But I
is,
think they're
he's a
saying because he
self-made
put them
man,
on.
right? Yeah, he's a self-made man, right? He wants to be a self-made man, and he wants to do the hard work. He was offered the position as the foreman, right?
Yeah,
And like to be the manager of the field,
yeah.
right? Which he is, but he felt like that would take him away from the field. That would take him away from doing the hard work that he cherished, that he was so proud of. So he
he
didn't
works
want.
twice as
That's what
long to do a
exactly.
better job because raking the olives bruise the olives.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
know.
So that's why he rejected that, and he said, "I'll take the house and I'll look over your fields, but I don't need the raise. I'll work just as hard as I am right now, and I want to do what the work that I'm doing right now, because that's what he cherishes in his life, and he wants to be that self-made man who doesn't take anything from anyone, who doesn't take charities or pity from anyone.
But
That's what
again, okay, I can understand that. But again, like I guess just to me, it didn't feel like that's what he was doing. I don't feel like Banderas was trying to give him
no, no,
charity.
no.
He was giving him work.
Yes, yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's. I'm not saying Banderas was wrong and
No, no,
Yeah,
no, no.
no.
I know what you're saying.
Banderas was a very sympathetic person in that scene, and just in general, like for the most part, I felt like he was so sympathetic from the audience's perspective that when he reacted the way that he did, it's almost as if the movie was actually showing that scene from either a more neutral point of view or perhaps even more from Banderas's character, Javier. Is it Javier or not Javier? I'm sorry. Banderas's character is
Sakion.
Mr.
Sakion.
Sakion. Yeah, it's almost as if we simply empathized with him at that time. So we were coming from his perspective and not from Javier's. And I think that's why, even though logically everything that Javier did makes sense, it doesn't actually feel right, in my opinion. I think that's actually a fault of the film, in my opinion, because I think everything was there. It's not like, it didn't make sense. It just didn't feel right because of the way that they kind of portrayed the two characters.
Yeah, see, that's kind of what was throwing me off. I actually agree with you because it felt like I don't know if that's what the movie wanted though, in a way.
Sure.
maybe that's what it wanted. It wanted to kind of make you feel uneasy and
Mm,
not really sure about what the hell just happened here.
mm.
Yeah,
Be,
I mean, I think that honestly, though, I mean, if you consider what happens later on, I think that it's actually a good thing that they kind of took it more from like the empathetic standpoint
Mm,
of
mm.
Sakion's character, because later on, when he basically betrays Javier. It subverts your expectations. If you were like empathizing with Javier at the time and you were completely on his side from the beginning, then later on it would just make Mr. Sakion feel like the bad guy,
Yes.
and it
and
wouldn't.
then,
It would
yeah.
go ahead. Yeah.
No, no,
So
I'm
yeah,
agreeing with you.
yeah. So I think that that discomfort you feel in the beginning is not. It doesn't feel right, but then it actually pays off later. Because imagine if they did it the other way. I don't think it
Mm,
would. The final product would have turned out as well.
Sal, what do you
yes.
think about what he just said?
I don't know. Well, I was gonna ask like if he's so like what do you guys think like if he's so suspicious why do you guys think he accepted like the promotion and everything?
He
Took the
didn't.
promotion. He
He
took the
didn't accept the
promotion.
promotion.
He took the promotion. He took the house as well. He just didn't
He
take the
took the
raise.
house. Okay. So
He just
he
didn't.
took more work.
He just didn't.
He,
He just didn't take the money.
Yeah, he took on more responsibility in a house. That sounds like I don't know, like there's leverage there.
how is there leverage?
You could
How
have kicked him out
he's
the
not?
house.
Yeah, but
Well,
like he's not getting paid more, so you can't take away like.
You could kick him
So
out the house. Like,
Yeah,
yes,
it's like great. I'll live under your roof, but I won't take the money to support
yeah,
myself.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's kind of the
yeah.
disconnect that I got there. That's why I was asking you
I
what you
mean,
guys
yeah.
thought.
There's more
like
leverage in the
regardless of
house than
what
there is in the money.
regardless of like the minutia like details like he's accepting the opportunity period and there's just like oh I put you on like he always can hold that over him there's always going to be that kind of leverage.
So
Sure.
and then when Sakioni asks him why don't you feel anything, he tells him, I wouldn't have taken the money. Like that's where he drew the line. Like I felt like that
Mhm.
was like
Okay, for me,
it was his way of telling him I'm a better man than you because I'm not taking your
Well,
father's money and you
yes.
okay, okay. See,
Exactly.
like
Good point.
Javier, like if Javier accepted the money and was later it was held against him by Sakion, right? Or another scenario where he just accepts the house and where he's asked to move out by Sakion. I think Javier would prefer the latter over the former, right? He would prefer being kicked out in that like, betrayal when if he's betrayed than having that money being accepted held over him because money is like sacred and at the same time um, something nefarious, right? So
Yeah.
I think in that sense, Javier would have preferred, being homeless than having that.
It's more
you keep
idealistic
extra
than it is
money.
logical.
Yes, yes,
I'm-
yes.
I totally agree with
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Logically it doesn't make sense. Yeah, I agree.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Okay.
But he's a man of ideal, so.
Hmm.
Until he left his
It's an
family.
it's an oh.
Like I was like until,
For them to have a better life than
I
him.
mean
Manu, you're just a hater, Manu. Oh.
I'm not a hater. I'm trying to put these things together. Like you guys know,
You're
I
such
love.
a hater.
No, I love this movie, but it's just like I felt him leaving was, to me, it felt very out of character for him to leave. That's why I wonder if that's really what happened.
Yeah, for me, it did, but then I was like, I went back and like I thought about the way he reacted to Sakion. So there itself, you have that establishment of that character of his character. He doesn't take shit from anyone. He doesn't take things for granted. He has very strong ideals, even if they're wrong. Like it's his ideals. He sticks by them. So in that sense, for him at that moment, him thinking that they would have a better life without him than with him. I think that makes sense in respect to Javier's personality, his ideals, and
Yeah, that actually, I agree with that. That makes sense, actually.
All right, I'll agree with that too. And again, if you think about it, it's another parallel between him and Will.
yes,
They both left because
Yeah.
they thought that because Will
Yes.
never thought that he would be able to get over losing Abby.
Mm.
So he would be no good to his daughter regardless.
Yeah.
So I guess you could make that you could see the parallel there as well.
Yeah, I mean like we discussed before, the movie discusses heroics and cowardice, right?
Yeah,
So even though from Javier's perspective this is the right choice, I mean it is it's a cowardly way
to approach the situation. I agree.
yes,
I
yes.
agree. I
So
agree. Look at Pranav making a good point.
so
Hey,
if you
I
guys
have those once in a while, okay?
so if you guys don't know if you like Javier or not, do you guys like Will?
You know, the funny thing is when I wrote the article, I called Will a coward. I call him a straight out coward, and then V is the one who told me to kind of soften the language. But I was very upset with Will when he committed suicide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was too.
I was very upset with him.
I mean, I think that the thing is, the way that Will his life was shown, it was always shown through his perspective,
Mm.
but you got more perspectives with Javier and his
Javier,
story, not just his wife, not him. You also got
Sakio,
Takeo,
Sakion. So
the
his
kids.
yeah, so there
and
was
his
more.
granddaughter as well, because she's the one narrating it.
Exactly. So that's a big difference there, is that,
I agree.
Will you get kind of tunnel vision, and you kind of project on him a little bit, and you don't necessarily feel always the full impact of his decisions, because you can't. It's impossible. There's only like one perspective, basically, and yeah, you can look at it logically and be like, yeah, that wasn't the right thing to do, and I'm upset. And you also feel bad because he's a good character and you really liked him. He's charming. He's an interesting.
It's Oscar Isaac, god damn
Yeah.
it.
So in the moment, it's like, you feel bad, but you don't feel bad for the same reason that you do with Javier.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And I
And
also think
also,
that that's the movie's doing as well. Like that these things are built into the narrative, that they're done purposely. I don't think it's just by accident.
But
yeah.
I will say this is something we need to discuss, and I think it doesn't have to be right now; it could be later on. But I think that with because I've heard people mention that this film, they felt it was messy, or it was unnecessarily convoluted and things like that.
Complicated. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I kind of scoffed at that idea, but then I thought about it and I introduced the idea of nuance. Thank you, Sal. And I considered this. Okay, so what does this film have to do to actually be those things? I mean, you can't just. I mean, can you coast on the idea that this movie is about the unreliable narrator and not actually have to use any kind of consistency? Like, where's the line that you draw to say, hey, this is a good way of a good narrative. This is a bad narrative, because technically, if the narrator is unreliable, you could just be a bad writer, you know. So,
I'm
so
sorry. I don't think I understood what you're trying to say. I'm sorry.
okay, here I'll reiterate.
All right,
So this
please.
movie is about expressing how life, and therefore this story, is unreliable in its depiction of the events that happen, because there's more than one perspective that's going on, right?
Correct.
So with that said, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's the theme, that's the gist of this movie. So if that's the case, then what aspects of the movie can be badly written? Like,
I
if the
see what you mean.
movie is
Okay.
unreliable in its narration, okay, for a purpose, then where is the unreliable narrative bad? Like, can you just write the story poorly and it be considered unreliable and therefore a part of the theme of the movie?
I think it's good that you brought up, because I think Pranav and I actually talked about this a few
Mm-hmm.
days ago in the chat after he had seen the movie the first time, where he said that he hated the use of the unreliable narrator, and I
No,
told
no.
him that
Sorry. I just hate the general idea of
yeah,
this unreliable narrator. Not in the movie.
yeah, I
Uh,
get that, and what I was going to say is that I think that that's kind of the issue. Like, I think that there's this misconception of what the unreliable narrator is. I do understand where you're coming from, Mike, but when you're saying like badly written, um,
I'm not saying that
No,
anything is
no, no, no,
badly
no.
written,
Yeah,
but
I
I'm
got
trying to
that.
bring up the discussion. Okay, so where do we draw the line? Like, let's say someone brings us some criticism about the film, right?
Okay.
At what point do we accept that criticism? Because, and what point do we defend the movie using the theme? Like, I don't like. I love this film, and there aren't really very many things about the film that I'm negative about. So I'm just gonna front with you guys right there. I'm just gonna just level with you guys. So I'm not going to say really anything too many bad things about the film. I don't think, unless maybe something comes up. Um, but what if we did have something bad to say? I mean, like what kind of criticism can you levy against this film that can't be defended by its theme? I think that's really important to discuss.
Okay.
No, that's
Sal,
pretty nuanced.
What?
Sal, what do you think about Mike's the issue that Mike just brought up? Because he's right. That is something to be that we should talk about.
Um, no, I think it's definitely very interesting, and I never would have thought about that, but yeah, I think that's very important to bring up with something like this, where the movie is making like a comment and an observation of storytelling, and like how can you, and the very nature of it, how can you like analyze and assess that issue within the film? It's like it's a very heady, like meta textual kind of thing. It's I don't know how I would I would approach that. I could see all of like the unreliable narrator like features of the movie, but I don't know if I'd be able to be like, like
Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
is this
Um,
like bad writing? Like,
Yeah,
I think you have to
exactly.
take it step by step. Like for instance, right? When you're the unreliable narrator, I think I don't like the fact that they made it a theme. I don't. They made it so they were so forward about it being a theme. Like it was even like the thesis that Abby was working on, and
Yeah.
I don't like how they made it such a forefront thing because, like for instance, there are moments in storytelling where you can do this. Like for instance, in Brad's Status, I think that Brad is an unreliable narrator, like legitimately. I
I
honestly
agree.
think that in certain situations, Brad is a better unreliable narrator than this film did, because like for instance, you can have like little moments like this in all sorts of film where a character does one thing but they mean something else, or they say one thing but they mean something else. You have a character say something in his head but then he says something completely different, and that dichotomy in between, that you read between the lines, and that is the truth of the film. That's the truth of that moment. And I think that with this film you can do that with every moment. So every time they subvert your expectations, you have to ask yourself, why did they do that, and what was the point? What's the story that they're trying to tell? You take that step by step and then you add everything together. I mean, it's quite complicated, but if everything still has to tell the same story. For instance, you can't just say, "Oh, it's trying to discuss how life is being unreliable." Like no, like everything still has to fit a larger narrative, even though the smaller moments are saying that. You know what I'm trying to
I
say?
guess the fair question is, do you think that this film does that?
Well, the question I would have is, are there any moments in here where the narration is reliable? I think that would probably be the way you figure out if the film is doing its job or not. Because if it
Can,
is, go ahead.
can,
Sorry.
yeah, can I chime in? Yeah. I think like the unreliable narrator means when the narrator is seriously compromised in a sense. The credibility of the narrator is compromised, right? So I think the movie begins with the unreliable narrator setting, right? The literary device, they're using that extremely well. But like that's the main focus in the beginning. But as the movie and as the story progresses,
It's
the
not much of a focus.
unreliability, yeah, the unreliability goes away, and you get a reliable narrator there. You see, the granddaughter is telling her story, her parents' story, her grandparents' story, in a sequential order, right?
Yeah, but
And
the thing is, she's
there is
not
no,
there for those events. She's been told those events. That's the problem. That's
but
why
but,
even
but
her
her
story is
yeah, that's
unreliable.
true. That's true. But her credibility hasn't been compromised here. Will's credibility is compromised when the psychiatrist asks him questions, and his whole narration falls apart, and he starts defending himself, and he's saying, maybe I choked her, maybe
Yeah,
I suffocated her. I don't
yeah.
know what's
He
happening.
rewrites the story.
He rewrites the story, but that
Yeah.
doesn't happen in the later half. The later half is completely narrated from one person's perspective, which might differ, which might be wrong in certain senses, certain scenes, certain parts might be wrong, might be unreliable, but her credibility hasn't been destroyed. She is a reliable narrator, so by the end of Will's story, the narration shifts from the unreliable narrator device. So we can judge the movie accordingly. We can say like this is bad writing, this is good writing, whatever, like what we were discussing before, right? So that issue is not an issue anymore
Yeah. I,
by the end of the movie.
I agree with that, and I think that that is actually probably one of the shortcomings of the film. I think that, like, so for instance, like, I think I think that they bring up a theme of an unreliable narrator, right? And they have this super like straightforward way of telling that, having a mentally unbalanced person vacillate between all these different ideas about his own life, right? I mean, that's such a straightforward way. And then they have more subtle ways. They have all these different ways of telling it. Like, for instance, with Javier's story, right? It's unreliable because you're getting different perspectives and everyone has their own opinion. But in that situation, it's not so much really a narration, it's their actual lives. Like, there's not really, the unreliability isn't so much in
I
the
think I
it's
actually disagree. I think that the unreliableness is there throughout the film. I think that from beginning to end, the narrator doesn't become more reliable, and I think that that's the point of it. It's like even if it
it's
is the
very unproductive. And I
pardon me,
think that, well, I don't know. So,
I don't understand what you mean by unproductive.
well, this is what I'm trying to say. I think that maybe the problem isn't necessarily in how the story is told. Maybe the problem goes all the way down to the very concept of itself. Trying to maybe they should have found a different way to express this particular theme, because I don't think you can properly judge a film that is telling you that it's going to be unreliable and then doesn't keep a very consistent method in which it explains that. Like, if they had it to where the entire story was about Will, then I think that this would work really well, right? But they have three different stories that take place all across the world, and they explain this unreliability. They explain this difference of perspective and this kind of like uncertainty of everything through all these different narrative devices and tools that you have to. They're like three different movies, and I appreciate that you have to watch the film again and again to get this stuff, but it's I'm just saying is I think that there are possibly clearer, better ways to express this theme. So I think it goes all the way down to a very conceptual level. I don't think that the film did anything technically wrong. I think the script was tight. I thought it was entertaining from like a just a face value perspective. But I think that if we're trying to judge the film based upon the themes that they're introducing in the beginning of the film, it becomes very unproductive to try to do that because they don't give us the tools in order to do it.
Sal, you want to chime in? Do you have anything to add to that?
You know what? This is gonna be maybe like a curveball to you guys, but everything Mike just said, you can apply that to The Last Jedi. This movie tries to subvert your expectations, and like Mike said, it doesn't do a good job of explaining itself. It has these stories that go all across the world,
And Oscar Isaac
galaxies. Oscar Isaac, and no, but like seriously, like the movie, like I feel like that these are like similar issues you can carry over to like The Last Jedi, and I don't know. It's kind of like a little. I'm in the middle of it right now, like this epiphany.
Yeah.
My man said The Last Jedi. That's the last thing I expected you to say when I called your name, Sal.
No, but do you understand what I'm saying?
I get it. I get it. I get it. Yeah, I
It's like
definitely.
it's constantly trying to subvert you, but it's caught up. Well, they're caught up in two different things. I'll say that the movies are different in their kind of nature, but they're trying to like one up you every turn, but
Yes.
they're just not succeeding at it because like with the Last Jedi, it's still caught up in being this giant, massive moneymaker, and with this movie, I guess it's just caught up in maybe like it's Mike said, like the concept itself is driving it down.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think there are ways. Like, this is the thing. Like, okay, so we want to make a story where life is an unreliable narrator, and we're trying to like make a commentary on that. Okay, so it's like, well, if like I don't think there's any concept too ambitious, but I still think that you have to actually cater to the concept. Like you can't just say, okay, this is the concept and I'm going to like express it any way I want. Like as a filmmaker, you have to have the ability to express this in a way that like you have to give the person the tools in the film to be able to decode it. And that's why we're going on tangent, right? So you might as well do it. That's why we like Zack Snyder. I watched the film once. Typically, before I do these pods, I usually watch more than once, but I was unable to do it this time. So I will give this film the benefit of the doubt, and I'm giving you guys information to be completely transparent because that's what I'm all about. I try my best to be honest about this stuff as best I possibly can. So maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like there was. And the funny thing about it is the irony was that there are people who told me that, there was a person who told me that this film was convoluted and overly complicated, and I was like really like kind of triggered by that. But now that we're talking, and I'm hearing Manu's rationale, I'm getting some like Widows vibes, like where he's trying to like put this theme on top of this film, and now I'm like considering the film from Manu's perspective, but then things are clashing, and I'm like, okay, you know, it's just like this doesn't feel right. Maybe I have to watch it again. But once again, I'm going with my gut on this, and I'm just saying that from a concept, it's just very turbulent, and I think that maybe a better director could have done it to where we could all kind of agree, and we could all kind of get it. But obviously we don't. So, you know, there's something there.
I'm not exactly sure what.
Man, I didn't know Mike hated this movie.
I don't think he hates this movie. I just don't know what happened.
Why do we start off every part and then end up hating the movie?
No, because it feels like it just took like the whole thing just took a right turn, and I'm trying to understand where Mike is coming from.
Okay, so here, let me
yes, please,
say something.
Because I don't think I fully understand what you're trying to say, because you're trying to talk about like there was a problem within the concept or a better director or so on and so forth.
Okay, so let's kind of bullet point this, okay?
Okay, please do.
So there is a very strong theme amongst others about the unreliable narrator. I think what I'm doing in my head is I'm taking your passions about this film and this particular theme, and I'm applying it to the film, even though I don't actually believe that's the biggest theme in the film.
Okay. But the film can have more than one theme.
I read your article before I saw the film, and I watched the film, and I'm continually thinking about the film from that lens. Okay. And I think that perhaps that is the reason why. Huh?
You read the book
first.
Did I say the book? I said I read your article.
No. He's making a joke that you read the book before you saw the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't ever do that. I shouldn't do that. But so that could be one thing. Okay, so I'm just saying that I feel like this movie starts to fall apart when you look at it from the unreliable narrator as the theme of the entire film. You're very passionate about this, Manu. You feel very strongly about it. But after I'm considering it and I'm hearing everyone else throw their ideas around using your thesis on this thesis about the film, it feels like there's parts where it breaks. I think when I watched the film, I enjoyed it. But now that I'm discussing the film, I'm trying to put a square block in a circle, slot.
Okay.
Manu, this is what we were discussing back then, right?
What do you mean?
Like this concept that Mike just put
Yeah, because
forward.
me, I think that the
Mm,
entire movie runs on the theme
mm,
of the unreliable narrator. I think even when it shifts gears from Will into the other chapters, there's
mm,
still plenty of things in there that that push on my thesis on it.
See, could there
mm.
not could there not be could both not be true? I'm joking.
So, like,
But
Oh, Mike.
could there be a theme for each part? Because I think that there could be an overarching theme. There could be
I think that the overarching theme is the unreliable narrator, but it's approached from different viewpoints. In the first chapter, we get Will, right, who is an alcoholic and a drug addict who's going through heartbreak, who's trying to understand himself, right. So we meet him, and we're instantly kind of told that and like it's like his version of things may or may not be what's correct, right? So we move on
yeah.
from Will, and then we get into the Dylan story, and that's when the granddaughter starts to. That's when she takes over from Will and starts to tell the story about her mom and how she grew up and living in that house, right? And again, my thesis is still she's not there for these things, so everything she's getting is coming from a second-hand person, right?
Is it
And
possible to watch this film out of order? Like maybe that would change the way that you view the film. I mean, because I think things are kind of chronological, but there's some things that run tangential to each
Yeah,
other.
they do.
So
Like the third part happens conventionally with the second part.
sure.
Uh,
So if you watch it out of order, but still like, in chronological order, but out of like, the way that it was presented, is it possible that maybe the film would make more sense?
but the film makes complete sense to me. Like to me, it does. I don't speak for other people. Like
Sure.
there's
Yeah.
nothing for me in this movie that doesn't work or that doesn't make sense.
No,
For me,
I
everything
agree.
fits together and
Yeah.
bleeds into each other and comes back full circle. So when you say that, it makes more
I'm at
sense.
a
I don't.
loss.
Yeah,
I
like
mean,
that's what I'm saying. Like
I
I'm
don't even
not
know what to
exactly
say
sure.
because
I'm
this
not
whole
really sure.
pod has been basically like from a certain point we started talking about how everything fits into this. We all came to the table and we had nothing to say, but you gave us this like lens, and now we're looking at the film and we all have different things to say. Like you kind of have everything planned out. I'm not sure. I can't speak for Pranav and Sal and I, but I don't like. I'm using this tool to like take this movie apart, and
No, that's
I'm
fine.
not.
That's perfectly fine. It's
I
just
don't
like
have
I'm
the
trying.
ability.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get us on the same page because I feel like I'm not. I kind of hear you, and I think I'm like as we're talking about it, I see why you're coming from where you're coming from because I think it's when we were talking about. I said at one point I said that it's the movie is doing it. This is something that the movie wants you to do, right? And I think that that's how we slipped into this whole thing.
Yeah.
So I do get where you're coming from, but I don't agree because I feel like the way that the story's told, and there are choices being made, and they're made for a purpose.
Yeah.
And when you watch the movie, everything fits together. There's a lot of things that keep coming back, and there's a lot of visual cues
Yeah.
and musical cues. Everything works together to tell this story. Now, it's unorthodox for sure, but I do think that the movie,
I've seen unorthodox films. I
yeah,
just feel uncomfortable because even films that I love, I feel like if someone raises a complaint, I can easily debunk it and I can show it without any
yeah,
like
I get
doubt.
that.
Like, hey, this is why this is the case. This is why it's
Yeah.
not. But with this movie, if someone were to raise a complaint, I don't know what I would say.
Well,
you know.
well, like I said, like for me, it works. Like if it doesn't work for you, like I'm glad that you brought it up, and I'm glad that we
I mean,
talked
I
about it.
enjoy the film.
No, 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 no,
I
I
think
know,
the
I know.
film works under different lenses. Like I said, I think that the film didn't do anything wrong. I think that it's just the way that you're looking at it. I can't view it through that. It doesn't work for
But
me. Like
but
the
but
way
that's
that you.
but that's perfectly fine though. Like Like what
Yeah,
I'm saying is like we're not supposed to watch these movies and see them all the same way. You know,
yeah.
like the fact that we see it differently is why we even do this. You know, if we all saw films through the same lens, then it just wouldn't work for like there would be no point in doing the
There
exercise that
would
we're doing.
Sure, sure.
there would be no exiles, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like the whole point of this exercise is that we see films differently, and that we can still love the film for different reasons, or not like a movie for different reasons, because we bring our experiences and our lives and our thoughts and just things that we know into every viewing experience. So
Maybe we should talk about why we like the film and maybe what the main thread of the film was for each of us, because that would probably help us to get a
we,
better
we,
perspective.
we
Yeah.
can definitely do that.
Yeah,
Do you wanna
I'd
go
like to
first?
add one thing. I'd
Go
like to
ahead,
add one
Pranav.
thing. Yeah, sorry. I think from like I'm not saying Manu is wrong. I think Manu's perspective is his perspective. His lens is his lens, and that's how he saw the movie, and that's how he understood the movie, right? From my perspective, I think they started with the unreliable narrative device, literary device, right? And they used that as a jumping point to make the thesis that life is the ultimate unreliable narrator, and so life is unreliable. Not the narration of the story, but life in general is just unreliable. It takes you along unexpected paths. You find surprises in every twist and turn, and I think that's the main theme throughout the movie for me. And they just use the unreliable narrator as a launching pad for that theme, and that's what drives the rest of the
But
movie.
you don't think that maybe the movie is trying to mirror that, like that experience
No, no,
of life itself? You don't think the movie is trying to recreate that within the way it's telling the story?
no, I don't. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning more to Pranav. I mean, I have my own ideas, but I'm kind of leaning more to Pranav's kind of perspective on the matter. I think that the whole unreliable narrator thing worked really, really well because, like, because it's ironic. I think that the irony that she wrote the thesis before
Mm,
Oscar had his breakdown and he was looking back at his life. He started to narrate his own life, kind of in a
and through that lens, right?
shoot through that lens. So I think that the fact that they kind of came together and all that was some really awesome, tragic kind of, destiny, irony kind of stuff going on. I love that, and it worked amazing, right?
Mm,
But then I personally need to start. I need to look at each of the other stories held within this movie in different ways in order for me to digest it. And I think there's a more broad kind of outlook on the entire movie that at least helps me to digest it. Like I think perspectives is a great way to kind of. It's more generic, I think, and it's a little bit more simple. It helps me to digest the film as a whole a little bit better. In
yeah.
my
Scott, what
opinion.
about you?
I think I definitely am more in Manu's camp. I just when I watch the movie, I just feel like the movie is trying to replicate that kind of roller coaster, uh, unexpected experience that life presents to us, and the whole unreliable. I just feel like the whole unreliable narrator concept and theme is just a lot more present and like overarching the whole film.
All right. So where do we go from here?
Oh man.
Maybe favorite moments and scenes.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
think we talked mostly about the themes. I think we knocked all that out.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm expecting Mike to write The Last Jedi Life Itself
And fit.
breakdown piece,
Oh,
the
boy.
similarities.
I'm not sure. I don't think I have anything left in me. I pretty much said everything I could possibly say about it.
Sal, you
Nice.
should rate
I mean,
it.
we talked about Brie Larson. We talked
Oh
about
no.
Star Wars. We talked about
Let's try to get Batman in on this.
All right, let's carry on. Let's carry on. Let's talk about our favorite moments and scenes. Mike, why don't you get us started on that?
Ah, man. This is kind of weird, but I really liked the concert that Dylan was at. Like when she
Yes,
was
yeah, me too.
yeah, it was just great. Like I don't know. what it was about that. But like I like how she kind of started off singing soft, and then it kind of went into this sort of like, you
She
know,
perverted. She
Edgy.
perverted the song.
edgy kind of like,
She
what do they call
perverted.
that kind of rock? Like,
She
uh,
perverted the music. She perverted the song.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and I liked it as well because when the daughter, the granddaughter, is narrating at the end, she talks about the reception of the album and how that particular song felt kind of like out of sync with the rest of the album, right?
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like she gave the version of that song that would fit on the album.
Mm.
You know, like the way that she perverted the song into this really hard and angry and like song that's like full of pain is what best resembles the rest of the album that it was on.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, no, I felt like that was a really great. I just the interlinking narratives that go throughout this film, and in the different settings that it takes is really clever. I can't think of a better word. It's just very, very clever. And I think that film was filmed really good. Like the cinematography was great. The music just was really great, and it also had like a narrative purpose. So it just felt really good at the time.
Okay, that's all right. Any others? Or is that all you got?
I mean, there's so many. I think that I mean, obviously, I felt like it'd be too easy to say the Will's final string session was
Hmm.
was amazing.
Damn it. I was gonna say that.
Yeah, I mean, like I felt like it's too easy. Like I didn't want to. I wanted to do something a little bit different, but
I
that
hear
was
you.
amazing.
I hear you. Sal, go ahead. Since you were gonna say it.
Well, yeah, that is probably just because it's such a gut punch. That's probably like my favorite or one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It's just like, and just his line before, like, "I don't want to be here. You're very
Yeah,
nice."
I'm
Mm.
That shit
sorry.
is just like what. And just like
Ah.
watching it afterwards, like just in the context, like you know what he's gonna do next. You're just like, oh no.
Yeah.
But I also really appreciate the concert scene and like uh, the kind of like a montage of Dylan growing up and like all like the tragedy in her life and just like the transformation from the little girl and until like what she would ultimately become is that broken teenager. Well, she's like 21, but still like
Hmm.
she's a very young, broken woman. So I guess those would be like my kind of favorites in the movie. And all the stuff with like the grandpa, like the stuff between her and the grandpa is great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or like the toast and everything, it's awesome.
I loved when they were when she was young and they had that little what do they call that? Like a skit sort of where she was like speaking very eloquently about her feelings as a very young girl about how her parents died before she was even born, and she or she ever got to see them, and she's had this sort of like feeling that death would follow her and tragedy would follow throughout her life and would consume all of her happiness up. And she said it in such an eloquent way as this tiny this young girl, and then it switched to what she actually said, right? And then it did the same thing for the grandpa too. How he said the truth, and then what he said, what he actually meant, like afterwards. So it was that was real. That was another one of my favorite scenes.
You know what I really like about that scene is that the little girl says that I'm afraid that the tragedy that I've suffered, the tragedy that birthed me, will keep me from having the life that I want. But the
Oh.
Hmm.
crazy thing is that that tragedy is what gave her the life that she wanted. If you think about
Oh.
it, like the fact that her mom died right there, that changed the direction of the life of that entire family
Mm.
of Harvey and his family.
Hmm.
If that had
Them.
never
Yeah.
happened, they might have never met at that spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dan Fogelman is the new Chris Terrio. Oh no! But one more thing, like the first time I watched it, when she spoke, when the little girl spoke like that, it didn't phase me because I'm always annoyed by young children speaking, like giving these amazing, like eloquent, like monologues and just you miss your puppy, kid. Like just say that.
You said you miss your puppy, kid.
Just I hope I'm not alone in that ridiculous like lines that kids have in movies sometimes.
You're
I
not
mean,
actually. I
sometimes
feel like
they play
Hollywood
it
has.
straight, But
like we were just talking about this with Brad Status when we said that we felt like they actually got an actual 18-year-old right, because I feel like
Oh yeah.
there's always this like
stigma.
they never write teenagers right or kids right, and just it felt really refreshing in Brad Status because it just felt like, yeah, this is an actual person, you know.
Yeah, it's not an 18-year-old through like a 45-year-old's eye.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. There you go.
in
That's well said.
TV and movies and media, like pretty much anyone from like their young childhood to like their mid 20s is all like they make them also juvenile.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
Pranav,
Yeah.
what about you? For your favorite moments?
Okay, I have three. One was just discussed now, and the grandfather and Dylan conversation. For me, like the little girl's responses were amazing, and the switch to what she actually said, that was amazing. But what made it even more great was Mandy Patinkin. His performance was just beautiful. Like that elderly, that father figure, talking to her and like telling her, I'll start exercising and grandpa will be there for you. And then you switch back to like him, what he actually says. Like he patronizes her and he says, no, I'm not gonna die, stuff like that. Like his performance in those scenes were just masterful. So that's there.
It was kind of a gut punch too.
I like how
Oh,
he
yeah.
said that. Masterful.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
Masterclass.
Sign
God
up
tier.
today.
God tier.
I said that yesterday.
Yep, you did. You did. That was a reference point. So now, what's the other one?
The other two are related to the mothers in the story, right? One is Dylan's mom, Olivia Wilde's character, Abby, right? Abby and Will, like they have lunch with their parents, and they're walking along the street, and they're they have they're talking to each other, and it's cute and it's all romantic. And then just before the accident happens, like when he when she says it's a girl, and that moment was just crushing. But like it hit me so hard because of some personal reasons. The third one would be the Gonzalez family. The mom died on her deathbed.
Yeah.
What's her name? Isabel.
Isabel.
Right? Isabel on her deathbed talking to her son, giving him advice. The final climax scene, right, where she's telling him, life has been hard and things haven't been great, but like all this has led you to this point, and that's life, and you have to embrace it. And that whole speech and her performance just amplified it. It hit me really hard. So those were the three favorite moments that I could think of.
That's good. So none of you mentioned Samuel L. Jackson?
Yes, I wanted to
I said
mention
push in, motherfucker.
Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Like,
I'm out of here.
yeah, that was when the camera, like after the doctor gets hit, and then Samuel Jackson just like, whoa! I'm like, he's
that
like,
whole
whoa!
scene,
Dog, it's like she's gonna be fine. She's gonna be fine. She's gonna be fine. Holy shit!
Mano, I wouldn't have seen this movie like this early if you hadn't shown me that scene like while we were working out stuff online.
Oh yeah.
If you hadn't shown me that intro, I would never have picked up the movie that day itself and watched the whole thing. I would have delayed it and like
Is that
watched
how
it.
life works?
No, love that intro. Like,
Yes.
I love it. It's just so pitch perfect. And we
It's a
talked about
great way to kind of it's a palate cleanser, but it's like ahead of time.
no, like it lets you know exactly what we're about to get into. Like I feel like it
Yeah.
completely
Yeah.
like
It
lets
sets
you
the mood, right?
yeah, it does. And like what's great is like then after that scene you have Will in the Starbucks, which is also a really
Oh.
great scene
Oh
where he
yeah.
starts singing Bob Dylan, and then as he's walking towards the therapist office, like a bus passes by and the camera focuses on the bus, and then
Mm.
there's this happy couple that walks by with a kid inside the stroller, and then the camera focuses on that, and then a dog walks by, and then the camera focuses on that. So like all of the things that were in the screenplay, as Will is walking towards the
Terrio
therapist,
Jr.
it just focuses on all of these like little details. Another one of my favorite scenes is at the party when him and Abby are in college, and like they're all in like Tarantino garb, which is another shout out
Oh
to
yeah.
Sam
Oh
Jackson. And again,
yeah.
you see them later on watching Pulp Fiction, lying in bed together. So like, there's all of these like really great threads that just like keep coming back over and over again. And even in that scene, Will kills himself basically in that scene as well. He
Yeah.
Yeah.
holds the gun inside his mouth and he tells her, "I'll kill myself if you don't marry me." You know,
Yeah.
like it, like so.
When
That's
when I saw that, I was like, huh,
yeah.
okay, that's
I mean,
foreshadowing.
I mean, the thing, like, I actually did not pick up on it the first time. Like, I didn't pick up on it the first time, but like you said, you read my piece before you watched the movie, so maybe that's why.
Yeah.
But I didn't pick up on it the first time. What else was I gonna? I had a couple more.
And
Uh,
you can see the intensity, like a weird. He gives out a weird intensity when he does that
Yeah.
in the
yeah, like
party, right?
Sal and I were talking about it, and we were like, Will was probably like a never like a well person,
No,
even
no.
Yeah.
before. Like,
He
Yeah.
always felt a little off kilter. I mean,
yeah.
I felt a little bit uncomfortable.
Say you
Yeah.
will marry me. Like a gun in his mouth. Just say it. Say you will marry me. Like,
mean,
whoa, dude, chill.
I also like how the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches keep coming back.
Oh. Oh
You
yeah.
know, like
Oh
his
yeah.
parent, like Abby's parents meet over a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. When Dylan meets what's his name, the son,
Uh, yeah.
she's eating one herself. Her band is called PB&J.
Mm.
You know, I just like all of these thematic cues that I keep mentioning are part of the film. Like it's just when you watch it over again, you're like, oh. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it's so much great stuff.
Well, you know, I think
So,
it's interesting that the film talks about the kind of like uncertainty of everything, but they have so many like reoccurring cues at the
Yes,
same time.
yes. Like we talked about, like the parallels between Will and Javier. How like there's such a thematic parallel between how they both exited their families' lives, thinking that it would be for the better if they weren't around, right?
Sure. So I guess maybe another theme would be, people are more alike than it seems. Like things that seem completely different and unrelated are
Yeah.
actually a lot more
And you can
similar than
drive
you.
it like, and you can drive it back home even further when you think that like Will seems to be like from America, you know, and he's like and Javier is on the other side of the world, and you can still see these resemblances there, and the fact that their children met and continued forward to create more children is kind of really is very is a very powerful idea, at least it is to me.
I agree. I agree.
Maybe
Anybody?
technical stuff.
I mean, anybody has any moments and scenes that they really enjoyed, or
no.
I mean,
Uh,
everything in Spain is just beautiful. Just
yeah,
it is though? Yeah, it is.
yeah.
It is.
Another scene I enjoyed was when Dylan was sitting down and she gets like a flashback of her parents. Because it was interesting because she like like I'm sure she was told the story of what happened, and she imagines it. And when her mom is in the street and the bus is coming, she speaks to her mom as if she's another person, like she's not like her mom. She says, hey lady, like get out of the street, what you doing, you know? And it was just kind of like it goes to show that like she feels like she was victimized by these people who didn't have anything to do with her. Really. I mean, like
Uh,
not. That's
Actually, that reminds me. Another scene that I really liked was the son Rodrigo when he's dating that chick in
Oh god,
college.
I knew you were gonna say that.
I love like when she was just talking and talking and talking,
oh,
and
dude,
then the
that
cars
that
coming,
frustrated me.
and
Oh,
I'm
I was like, dude, he's gonna push. He's gonna push.
just let her go, dog. Just let her go.
He's such a
But
nice guy.
yeah,
Dude,
and I'm
when he
sorry, but I
didn't do it,
love
I was like, man, this guy is too good. Like, just please
No.
walk away from this.
my
He
favorite
is the
moment is
hero, right?
when she goes like April Fools. I was like, no,
Oh my
no,
god.
no.
I was
I was
like,
like, no, and then
No, but
she's like, fuck, you're about to break up with me, aren't you?
no.
Like,
The funny thing is that one of the things that girl loved about Rodrigo was that
he didn't.
he doesn't know things. He just doesn't know their culture.
He doesn't know
And
Whole
then he's
Foods.
like, I didn't know that. And she's like, well, I didn't know that. It was so funny.
No, it was vegan. It was vegan. It was she like, what's a vegan? She's like, you know, oh, I think it's so cute. You don't know what a vegan is.
No, she says you don't know what things are.
Oh yeah. You're right. You're right.
He's like, you don't know things, and she thought it was cute. And then he didn't know what April Fool's was, and it bit her in the ass.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, that's all right. So let's talk about the cinematography and the score. Sal, get us started. You're our eyes in the sky or whatever the fuck you are.
So after the lunch that Abby and Will have with the parents, there's a shot from inside the apartment. Abby and Will are walking down the very middle of the street. It's like the shot from the posters where like they're holding each other in the street. They're walking straight down. You see it from a window, and it's the grandpa character. You see it from over his shoulder.
Yeah.
And then later on, when Olivia leaves to go to the concert,
Yeah.
the Dylan character leaves to go to the concert. She's walking down the middle of the street, and they do the same shot from inside the
Yes.
apartment, from the window, over the
Yep.
shoulder
Yep.
of the grandpa. I was like, bro, this is like Snyder level shit right now. Bro, that. And I caught that on my second viewing, and I was like, "Wow, that was like really poetic." I love that.
Yeah,
And I
it was beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Same.
beautiful.
Yeah, I
and
caught
it
it on my
really
second viewing.
gives that grandpa character a lot more weight than
Yes.
than like if you're just watching it superficially.
Because he's a thread. He was there for both timelines.
Mm.
that's how you make
he's
an
the
ensemble
connection.
movie, and you make every character feel fleshed out as they did.
Excuse me,
Like
can you say that again, Mike? I didn't catch that.
this is how you take an ensemble movie and you make every character feel as fleshed out as you do. Like these little moments add like just years worth of impact to these characters in like moments.
And the aging also of the grandpa is done very well.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
The aging of the grandpa is also of Paddington is done
Oh,
very
yeah.
well.
Yes. Mhm.
The thinking.
Yeah, because we see him through all of it, and like his aging, like he's like at the end of it, he's like struggling to move around.
Yeah.
You know, so
Oh, and the grandma character. Oh my god.
she's great. I actually forgot. I really like that scene when they're at the dinner together, and she's like, "I'm so
Oh.
glad your parents are dead."
It's like, I'm gonna say something really selfish here.
Yeah, and then Abby's like, "She's gonna explain it. She's gonna explain it. Don't worry, it's not that bad." Like, I'm like, no wonder.
No,
Will
I like how
this
she's like, oh, Abby knows what I mean. Oh, that you're glad her parents are dead? Like, what do you, like, there's some extra meaning here.
It's like, she's gonna
Yeah,
explain it. She's gonna explain it. Like,
So many uncomfortable moments in this movie. Like so many.
Did you
Rodrigo
preach?
and his girlfriend. I mean, just like when Will was talking, it was trying to get Abby to marry him. Like, just so many moments. They're just so uncomfortable. Like,
Or like when Dylan fights that girl for filming
Yeah.
for filming her. That
Yeah.
was pretty intense.
It was, man, and then she smashed the peanut butter and jelly
Oh,
sandwich on her face.
No, she smashed that girl's phone, and then the girl was like, "You owe me a new phone." It's like, whoa. Dude, that show was hilarious. No, and the movie is surprisingly comedic for all all the crazy
Yo,
tragedy.
it really does. Like,
Yeah.
like Will is so funny though. Will is so funny.
yeah. He is.
Oh yeah, well he starts
Hilarious.
singing at Starbucks.
Yo, I
Yeah,
cracked up.
Oscar Isaac is great. Like
when he
I
tells
imagine
the-
Oscar Isaac doing all these things.
or
Like,
when he tells the therapist we're gonna have a movie night and watch Natalie Portman movies.
dude,
Uh,
that's when we bonded.
yeah, is it?
It's me and him watching Vox Lux, man.
Coming soon. um, so yeah, Pranav, do you have anything to add about the cinematography?
Like I said, Spain, everything in Spain is just beautiful. The fields, the way they shot the fields, Javier's house, um, the way they show how things change over time with the kid, and those shots were amazing.
Oh, when he's
Whatever.
like getting older, as
Yeah,
running
oh,
through
yeah.
the field.
Oh, running through the field.
Yeah,
I mean,
and-
I know it's cliche, but like,
no,
it's-
yeah,
it's
I'm
so
with you,
good.
man. It's great.
Yeah, it was so
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah, that's what I was really hoping. I was like biting my tongue, hoping that he would not say that. He would leave the field one out.
You and I both, Michael.
Like, please don't. Like, that's the one I want to take. But no, I mean, I think so. Every time we do this pod, every time I watch more movies, every time that we discuss these things, I learn more and more about the impact that cinematography has on film and even films like this. Like, I've watched enough films like this to like I'm starting to slowly understand, that hey, these aren't your Blade Runner 2049s, but they still have their own cinematic language, and you just have to look at it from a different lens. But I loved how they show different perspectives. That is cinematography in itself, how you legitimately have different perspectives for every character and you have the same thing happening. And those revelations are what really add a lot of impact. Like you were saying, the over the shoulder shots with the grandpa. I really enjoyed
See, he doesn't need his own solo film. You just give him that stuff. You just tell the story.
Yeah, exactly. And you fill in the blanks. I know exactly. But the bus scene where you go to Javier's perspective, like you have it to where after Will, Olivia, not Olivia, I'm sorry, Abby.
Abby. Yeah.
It's funny. It's like Olivia. You have Olivia Wilde and Olivia Cook. So I get. But
you're right. Yeah, you're right.
No, I went
and
through that in my head
their
earlier.
mother and daughter. It's like, your mother name is Olivia. Anyway, but Abby gets hit by the bus. She dies, and Isaac.
Isaac.
Oh my god.
It's a new one.
Will
For the patrons right there.
Mike's a mess, man. Mike's a mess.
I'm gonna make a T-shirt.
Will looks up and sees what's his name? Not Sergio. Man, all these Spanish names are all the same.
Oh my god.
Oh,
Rodrigo.
Wow.
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, Rodrigo is in bus that hits, and then you see it from both perspectives. It's good. It's good stuff. Cinematography, good. Good cameras.
Thank God. Thank God. We got through that. The cinematography is great. There's a few shots in particular that I really love. You guys actually mentioned them already. The field one, the over the shoulder camera angle, from the grandpa looking at them outside the window. Antonio Banderas, when he's telling the story of his life and his childhood. I think that there's some great shots of him there.
That whole scene has such great blocking, like the way he moves, like throughout the scene, and like sitting down, standing back up, and like
going to go get the drinks and the olives,
yeah.
like everything just works, And I think one of my favorite pieces, my favorite shots, I think it's in the ending montage when she's talking about how the hero and the villain in every story can be different, and then the camera focuses. Then you have like a close up. You have one of I think you have one of Banderas, and then you have this other one of Javier, and then he gets this like very like evil, cockish like grin on his face. Do you know what I'm talking about, Sal?
Yes.
A what? Grin on his face?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, there's this shot of Javier at the end where he just looks like he's the devil, like he's the evil character, and it was it's such a powerful shot because he's like it's like a close up and he's like fully in frame.
Oh, when the well, I guess you could say the great granddaughter, when like the final narrator, when
Yeah.
she's like my mother, my grandfather, like when she's listing them all off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get what
yeah,
you're saying.
So yeah, I think the cinematography was great. Let's talk about the score, Pranav.
Yeah, the score, like, there's this theme of Bob Dylan and his that song, right?
Yeah,
And one thing I like is Dylan when she goes up on stage and she's introducing it and she's saying this is personal to me and like some asshole she says something that pisses her off and she starts singing the song and you're like, oh, that's so adorable, that's so cute, and then she switches it up and it's hard metal and that little what do you call it, this that soundtrack, that was amazing. That really encapsulates like her feelings, like she takes what has happened to her and like she has um, um, mutated it into um, this huge thing that's holding her back, that's holding her down and making her miserable, right? And that kind of is reflected on the song, this song that has been shown in this perfect light by Dylan's mom Abby and her father, and that is being perverted in this, hard metal version. That was great.
Mike.
Yeah, Pranav took it again.
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
could only stick to bananas, right?
Oh,
Yeah, the problem is no one's gonna know what that actually means.
We do.
my pal Pranav.
Yeah, I mean the score, particularly revolving around "Make You Feel My Love" by Bob Dylan, was really good. It was just, I love motifs. I love musical motifs. First Man had a great musical motif that really played into the story, and I felt in a lot of the same ways this did. And besides that, there really isn't much else to talk about the score. Like that's it. But it's good.
Salazar.
What Mike said. Because there's not really anything else. It's the Bob Dylan music. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah, it's mostly it. There's a couple of other pieces that are used, but it's mostly set, but like the Bob Dylan thing really like puts the whole movie from beginning, middle, and end. Like yeah, it is, but it's good. It's good. It's well used.
Yeah.
I like the way
Yeah.
they change it up. They use the instrumental, and then they play it in Spanish when we're in Spain. So like I really liked how they kept using it, but they kept switching it around depending on the
they kept
situation.
it fresh.
Yeah, they kept
Yeah.
using it differently.
Imagine, I mean, 'cause I had to say, films that don't have a lot of scoring, it's difficult. It's like, that's honestly, those films should get props. Those films should get props because it's difficult to do. Imagine, like, you could easily put, like, music behind scenes like the psychiatrist session, and ruin it. But there's nothing, like, just the silence there and the dialogue. It's like, that's what makes that scene great. Like, that's the score. There's nothing. It's most of this film, the actions and the dialogue speaks for itself. I feel like any sort of music would just feel like manipulation almost.
I like that. I like that. Well, let's close out this part. Let's give our final thoughts. Sal.
Uh, I absolutely love this movie. I think my favorite part of this movie will always be Oscar Isaac's performance. I love the first chapter of this movie.
Yes.
I guess it's technically two because you have the Samuel Jackson thing, and then
Let it
Will
go,
Smith.
let it go.
Let it go. I said push in.
Yeah. Push it on that motherfucker.
And like I said at the top of the podcast, I love this directing, this screenplay, and this unreliable narrator theme. That's all like I feel it's woven into one. And of course, if you're at this point of the podcast, you've already seen the movie, and I highly recommend going to see it again because I love movies where they reward you for watching it multiple times. It's a very, I found it to be very, very rewarding on the third watch. It's a really spectacular movie that just doesn't get a lot of love. It's been out for like 2 months already, or 3 months, and it's just, I don't see enough discussion about it, even in the places where you see people talking about these kinds of movies.
Well said. Mike, what about you?
Man, so many thoughts. I mean, the film is great. I really wish I watched the film before I read your article. So I'm sorry, you were right, Manu.
I told you not to read it. I told you. I made it very clear. I told you don't read it. Watch the movie. And you
This is why Mike shouldn't watch Watchmen. He's got to listen to Manu. Just listen to Manu.
No, but I also think like if you hadn't read the piece, you wouldn't have watched it.
Yeah, and that's why, this is a very life itself scenario. It's like the movie would not have interested me. I would never watch it if I didn't read the article. So, but all in all, I really appreciate it. I think it's kind of storytelling that, it doesn't get like this film didn't get very good critical.
It only got trashed.
It got completely trashed, right? Yeah, I was completely unaware of that. Like I didn't know about any of that until actually after I watched the film. So I feel like this is kind of a film that should get a little more attention, and I think that being on the streaming service like Amazon, Netflix, all those guys is going to give that a platform for people to watch and discuss these sort of films. I think we haven't talked this in depth, this passionately about anything since
2 nights ago when we talked about Brad Status.
But
before that.
Exactly. But that just goes to show that these films, there's so much to talk about. They have so much to offer, and I feel like we need more of this. So I'm really happy we talked about it. I'm really hoping that people get an opportunity to watch this film and to see these great performances.
Awesome, Pranav.
Well, the Banana Man. Has to have his last words, right? For me, this is a well-written, beautiful movie, beautifully scripted, beautifully shot, with amazing performances that emotionally broke me, that had me crying from the beginning to the very end. And I know I cry watching movies a lot, but this was a different experience. This was a different experience altogether. I couldn't stop crying from the beginning to the end because it was that packed with emotion, packed with sentiment, which comes off very sincere. The stories, the interlinked narratives, and the lives of all these characters are brought to life in such a beautiful way. It's an amazing experience. I hope everyone listening to the pod watches it again if you have, and watch it if you haven't. Thank you.
We need to get Pranav to cry on camera.
Oh no, I don't want to see that.
You guys don't want to see that.
I don't want to see that.
You see like monkeys like come in with like Kleenex, like drying his eyes,
offering him a banana.
I love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies that was released last year. I think it's a beautiful story. I think it's well written. I think it's well told. I think that it's filled with great actors that give immensely rewarding performances. performances. I think Oscar Isaac does steal the show, but that man he's amazing.
He's a god.
He's the GOAT.
God tier.
Yeah, he's amazing in this movie. Just opening the movie with his story and his pain, and I feel like it does kind of like hang over the rest of the movie, even if we move on to different times and different places and different people. I feel like his pain is still felt through every single scene in the movie, and you can't escape it. And only a great performance could have done that, and he came through. And I really, really love doing this pod with you guys, especially Mike bringing up the stuff that he brought up. And because before we started this pod, I said I am never watching this movie again, because I don't want to keep feeling the way that it makes me feel, because it does hit a lot of it does hit me in a lot of specific places in my heart. But listening to what some of the things that Mike brought up, it does make me want to watch it again, because I feel that where he was coming from during that section, I feel like there is some way that we can mend that bridge, if you get what I'm saying.
Reach a middle ground.
Yes, and I think that we can that rewatching and continuing to discuss these themes and this film will get us there at some point. And I really just want to say I appreciate all of you guys, and thank you for watching the movie and coming out here and talking about it with me. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for recommending it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate the recommendation. I was skeptical, but you pulled through for me, Manu.
Ah, man, I owed you for Brad status.
Yeah. No, hey, man, that's what we do.
Yeah, man.
That's what we do.
You got Mike to read the book.
Yeah.
So please, like, go.
Never read the book first.
So I really encourage Mike and Pranav to watch the movie again. You guys have only seen it once.
Yes.
Like, you guys have got to see it again, and like,
Gotta get on that Sal level.
yeah, you got to see all the stuff that Sal and I
Hey,
see. Because
only Alita holds that place in my heart.
Ooh.
I'm definitely watching it again multiple times this weekend. So
yes,
yeah.
please do. And when you do afterwards, I would love to like talk about it with you again and see if you swing more back to my side than Mike's. Because I think
Absolutely.
yeah. So okay, with that said, let's give our ads and let's let the people go home. Sal.
Yeah, I am at Salazar 2049 on. I almost said Facebook. But yeah, I am at Salazar. I am at Salazar 2049 on Twitter. Mostly just hanging around with these hooligans and whatnot.
Mike.
You can find me at Millennial Mike. That's at Velcro16, VELKRO16. That's Velcro spelled wrong with a K.
Awesome. Pranav.
Well, you guys can't find me on Twitter.
I forgot. I completely forgot.
He Oscar Isaac. He Oscar Isaac out of here.
No,
Really nice.
I think I said
You're
that
really
on like the
nice.
last pod I was on. I wasn't on Twitter and I was like,
You're very nice. You're very nice.
We need to get worse to like Photoshop, like Pranav, like merge Oscar Isaac's face in that one scene. You know, the one with Pranav's face.
You guys are killing me. Oh.
Okay.
with like the same like dead crying eyes.
Yeah. But like kind of merge their faces together.
Well, you can't find Pranav. Oh
But you guys can't. But you guys can't find me on Vero, Dr. Pranav Padmakumar.
We'll spell that out for you guys in the show notes.
Yeah.
You can reach me at manunited0710 on Twitter. You can reach the Femme Exiles at the Exiles.net. That's on Twitter. We're on Vero. We're on Instagram. Please check out our Instagram page. My man Sal has been killing it. You can get all of the updates on our episodes. You can get when we post up articles and so on and so forth. So definitely check us out on that platform. We are on Vero. We are working on getting things running on YouTube as well. So stay tuned and listen.
Well,
yeah.
How about we just throw it out there that we are looking for someone for YouTube, and if anybody wants to help contribute, then they should throw their name out there.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
And
we should talk about that maybe in a dedicated pod or something like that. But yeah, I mean, we definitely would like to expand, and anyone who wants to join the Exiles, we'd love to have you join the crew. Just hang around. Don't be a stranger, and we'd love to get to know you guys. So
You gotta have that toxicity within you. We don't.
I'd like to add something.
Go for it, Pranav.
You guys should definitely check out Manu's article. It's on our website. If you've listened to this pod so far, you will love this article. It's beautifully written. It's emotional, just like the movie. It's amazing. Please check it out.
Well, thank you, Pranav. I
and
appreciate that.
we're on Patreon.
We're on Patreon. We are on Patreon. And please, if you think that we deserve it, why don't you go on iTunes and give us a 5-star rating and give us like a short review? That would really help the word get the word out about the podcast. Yeah, only if we deserve it. I'm not asking anybody to just be blind corporate shields to the Exiles. At least not yet. At least not yet. All right, I think we've covered all our bases, right?
Yep.
Yeah, just about.
Right.
Yeah.
Pretty
All
thorough.
right, great. Well, thank you guys. I said it before and I'll say it again. I really, truly appreciate you. And before we go, I will tell you guys this. I've had some like rough times in my life. I think we've all had ups and downs. And like the film says, even when the world gets you down on your knees, you just gotta keep moving forward, and you'll find love. And like not to get too emotional on you guys, but honestly, meeting you guys and doing this pod with you guys and just being part of what we're trying to do has really given me a lot of strength and purpose, and I mean it when I say you guys mean a lot to me, and doing this with you guys has been incredible. So thank you guys very much.